I think it's the fact that you see it every single year right before Survivor Series, and it's just consistently weird trades. You don't see anything truly like great happen. And it feels like it just is the same old ish. You see the same kind of teams get drafted and traded and everything in between. And nothing really stands out. I haven't liked this new format. I didn't like the format that they went after 2004 when it was just a draft lottery. It was random. I feel like the way they do it now is kind of a complete mess. And I don't know what's going on with it. So I want to change some things. And if I were in control of WWE, I would do this. And I would go ahead, like the week after WrestleMania, have the WWE completely rebooted. And this is a one-time only thing. I'm never going to do it again. When I was putting this idea together in like a rough draft, I was going to do it every 4 years, and it kind of feels pointless. So my idea is we reboot the entire company. This is rosters split that doesn't exist. Everybody's a free agent now. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, all of them. All titles are now vacated. We clean up all three brands in the process, and we try and figure out how we want to do this. The draft will start on Friday Night SmackDown. This will be the week after, not the Friday night after WrestleMania or the night after WrestleMania. We're going to give it a week. And we continue telling a story, or we wrap up some storylines. We tie up some loose ends. And then the following Monday, we announce we are rebooting WWE. And we go ahead and have the draft start on Friday Night SmackDown, Raw, and then NXT respectively. And we have it put together like this. And we'll have a grand total of 120 picks over the course of 3 shows. No worries about talking smack or Raw talk or whatever you want to do with an NXT post show. There will be 10 picks each during SmackDown. That's 20 picks over 2 hours. We'll have 20 picks each during Monday Night Raw. It's a 3-hour show. We double the picks. And we have 60 picks over the course of those 3 hours. And then 10 more during NXT's 2 hours. And anybody from any brand can go anywhere. Hypothetically, you could have Randy Orton go to NXT or Braun Breaker go to Raw. And again, it's 10 picks each, 20 picks and 10 picks. So NXT has a chance to get somebody really good that can help build your brand and build that brand up. And here's how you set everything up for this reboot. And I think NXT could have done this with NXT 2.0, but I get it. So the plan is that you spend the next several weeks with tournaments. You book tournaments for each of your belts. And also going forward, in my parallel universe, in my alternate universe, whatever you want to call it, I say the championships are going to be now dual branded going forward. We vacate all the titles and we get rid of some. I'll talk about that in a second. But we make these dual branded, and this comes to a head, and this builds up to Night of Champions. We're not doing Backlash until June. And in my mind, we're getting rid of a lot of these other pay-per-views with gimmicks, Hell in a Cell, all that stuff in my personal world. And every match on the card is going to be a championship between the red and blue brands. And this will continue into June with NXT TakeOver Clash of Champions. And you bring back the old WCW logo for this show. I love that Clash of Champions design way better than I do the current design, which looks way too corporate and clean. I want something a little bit different because NXT needs to be a little more grimy, a little more grittier. And then we also kill off some championships. Like the two that get killed off first immediately, the 24/7 title and the Women's Tag Team Championships, because you completely have botched that championship over the last year. You literally just have one tag team that's set up for a women's tag team division. Not a great idea, Bob. So ideally, this would stay in place until WrestleMania the next year. And trades could take place at any point. Now, if you want to do this the right way, you have to sacrifice draft picks as well. So let's say, for example, you want to Roman Reigns and the Usos both get traded over to Raw in exchange for Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, AJ Styles and Omos. Let's throw 4 out there. It's a 4-for-3 deal, and you have to trade all that, and you have to trade if you're Raw. And obviously, you come up with a fictional system that works where you have your draft value. Let's say Roman Reigns is your number one pick and you're trading him in there. You got to give up a first, a second, and a third if you're Raw or SmackDown. Raw has to give up those picks to be able to get Roman Reigns because of the fact that it's such a big deal. And those picks are going to become important. I'm going to talk about that more down the road. And you could really work some things out to where you can have a partnership with Fox and NBC. You already do to a certain extent, to where you can have everything run an angle and you can set up some cool stuff in terms of storytelling and making each and every one of these trades matter a lot more. And I'd say also, we're going to add in something else for Survivor Series. And again, taking stuff from real life sports, because that's one of the most important things about this exercise for me, is the fact that you need to do it very similar to how pro sports does it, because pro sports does it well. So for the Survivor Series, which is basically the All-Star game, every match be SmackDown versus Raw battles, but not like how it is now. But you have 3 matches over the course of the entire show that are very much like battles between people who are Raw and people who are SmackDown. They get 2 things if they win. If whoever wins 2 out of 3 gets 2 things that they get to do. One of those is an extra pick in the following year's draft, which could play large into how this whole thing goes. Because let's say you had to give up a first-round pick if you're Raw to get Roman Reigns, and you win the 2 out of 3, now you get that pick back. And mind you, SmackDown still gets an extra pick, but now you're back to the rate we'll talk about in a few, about how I want to put it together for these next year. But then you have something even better for a blue brand or red brand, whatever it is, because this will be mainly the blue versus red. The SmackDown will still be treated as a developmental, but these guys will still have an opportunity to get called up next year. We're going to talk about that in a second. But whoever wins gets to select one superstar. It has to do this before WrestleMania. Gets to select them as a franchise tag. They get to put a franchise tag on them. So no matter what, let's say again, using Roman Reigns as an example, he's the guy that you want to keep around on your roster to be able to get the most ratings, to be able to do the most things, and be able to achieve your goals. And that's being the best brand. So on and so forth. And here's how you do it. You put a franchise tag on them for the entire year of the next draft. So that way you have them secured until WrestleMania 2 years down the road. And hell, if you win again, just go ahead and keep putting that guy on the franchise tag. A lot like what we see in the NFL. But now you get to the draft next year and going forward. What happens next? And I think this is the way to do it. You have a pool of 20 superstars that will be selected between Raw and SmackDown the night after WrestleMania. NXT will have a chance to pick from a pool of 20 with 10 picks. Now, when it comes to Raw and SmackDown, we're giving them 5 picks apiece. But again, you could have more depending on how you do moving trades around, or how you're going to put together another show. How are you going to put together other things? If you get an extra pick from Survivor Series, or you get the next pick in such and such draft, but you're going to get at least set up 5 picks from the jump in next year's draft. You got a pool of 20. The other 10, they will go back to their respective brands, or they could be part of negotiations in terms of free agency. And there will be predetermined pools of 20. And the same thing with NXT. Now, the champions will remain dual branded after WrestleMania. They will be considered free agents as soon as they lose the titles. So let's say the next night, because this will happen the night after WrestleMania. So let's say a week later, they lose the title. Now they have to decide what brand they're going to go to, and you have it be under contract negotiations where they disappear for a little bit for a week or two, and they come back and they're part of SmackDown or Raw or even NXT. I think this is the way of the future and the way WWE needs to focus on if they want to continue doing the drafts and it not seem boring and repetitive.